Howdy, folks. I'm here for Morbid Mattski's top 25. He's been taking his sweet time trying to get it done. And it's so long, rumor has it it's going to be in two parts. The first, number 25 to number 11. And the second part will be the top 10. Let's get into it. Hey everybody, how's it going? Okay, I am back with this really interesting challenge I gave myself. I am back to let you guys know what my top 25 slasher films list looks like. Of course, for my preference, this doesn't mean it's the end all be all here, guys, so go easy on me if you don't agree. That's totally cool. I would love to hear, what I've missed, because I'm sure I'm going to miss some, or, what I have way out of whack, or how you would have done it, or whatever. That's totally cool. But this is just in order of my favorite top 25 to watch. Just the ones I enjoy the most. I know there may be some that are simply better movies than others, but just as a slasher that I adore watching, I put together my top 25, and let me tell you, it was crazy hard for me. Like I said, this was really, really tough for me to go through a top 25. There were so many that I wanted to sneak in there, and I just couldn't decide which way I wanted to go with them. I did want to say at the beginning, there were a few I was sort of on the fence with. Like, for example, I decided to take out the Psycho movies. I was thinking about putting those in there, and I thought, are they truly slasher movies? And I sort of looked into it, and I thought it's probably best to leave those off, as well as American Psycho, mind you. That's another one I was thinking I'd put on there, but I thought, is it slasher? Like, it's quite a satire, that's for sure, and it's sort of yeah, I don't know. Ultimately, I decided to leave those ones off, so those ones were excluded from here. The other one that I had a little bit of trouble with was the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise, because is it really a slasher movie? It's cannibals, a whole family. But what I did was I kind of went online and I checked a bunch of other, slasher movie lists and whatnot. And I would say more than 3/4 of everything I saw, they were on the list. So I felt like the general consensus is they would put Texas Chainsaw Massacre under slasher category. So I thought, okay, well, they are eligible for the list, I guess. So I just wanted to say that off the beginning, and then mention, of course, the honorable mentions. So these are the few that came so close to making the top 25 for me. It was a real struggle, but I'll just say a few of these in no particular order that ultimately didn't get my top 25, and it was brutal. Okay, so those movies are, again, in no particular order, Terrifier 2. Yes, believe it or not, I put 25 movies ahead of that one. Candyman, 1990. I put 25 movies ahead of that one as well, even though I really love it. It's good. It's a really good movie. My Bloody Valentine, a great slasher movie. I struggled with that one as well, but again, left it off my top 25. After that as well, another one called The Burning, I left off of the list. That is a pretty cool one as well that I've always been pretty fond of. Then I know there are a few other slashers that are really popular that I've actually never seen. Just for instance, movies like Popcorn and The Prowler, for example. Apparently slasher movies, I've never actually seen them. I still have to see them. So movies like that, of course, are not going to be on the list. So there may be some that I actually haven't seen and haven't been on there. So again, this is just my personal preference. So leave me all the feedback you'd like. Let me know what I missed or what you would change, or what you think. It's just to talk about it and whatnot. But all right, so without any further ado, let's get into my top 25. Okay, so starting with number 25 at the bottom of the list that squeaked in ahead of all of those others from 1988, it's Friday the 13th, Part 7, The New Blood. Now, I know this one is a little bit controversial because of the, the telekinesis aspect, and I know that is a little silly, but I did enjoy the movie overall. It's still a Friday movie. It's Kane Hodder's first Jason. It's probably the scariest Jason we've ever seen on film. Certainly the full outfit anyway. I think he looks really awesome. And Kane's best performance too, in my opinion. Not that he was no good in the other ones. I just thought this was the impactful one, and I think for those reasons it just squeaked in there at number 25 for me. Okay, moving on to number 24, it is A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 4, The Dream Master. Now this is one that I've been pretty fond of because it was kind of in the midst of A Nightmare on Elm Street being so huge in the 80s. Dream Warriors was gigantic, and we were really looking forward to the next one that came out, and this one did as well come out in 1988, so it was really at the height of Freddy for me. So I did really like the movie. It was a continuation off Dream Warriors. I remember being pissed that Patricia Arquette didn't reprise her role, but I think she was on to bigger and better things at the time, but I wish she would have done it. That would have been really cool. Anyway, that is my number 24. Moving on to number 23, it is Friday the 13th Part 5, A New Beginning. It's like, what? You put that one in there? Yes, I did. And here's why, in a nutshell. It is, to me, a very solid slasher movie that kind of has everything you'd ever want or expect in a slasher movie from the 80s. You have the gory kills, you got Jason running around. Even if it's not Jason, it kind of feels like Jason. I know we felt a little ripped off at the end of it maybe, but that movie, I just think overall it's just a really fun slasher movie. And they, had it been Jason for real in there, I think a lot more people would have liked that movie. It was pretty cool. Okay, so on to the number 22 pick. Now this one is a little bit controversial, I'm sure, because it is a very new movie that just came out this year, and that is Scream 6. Oh yes, I know. It's a little high on the list. I'm not saying it's amazing or anything, but I was really impressed with how much fun it was. I thought Ghostface was particularly really brutal. There was some silliness as always. Let's not get carried away here, but I just meant overall as a slasher movie, I really enjoyed it. I have a lot of fun with it. I've already seen it a handful of times, and yeah, it's a fun movie. So it is my number 22 pick. Okay, on to number 21. It is a little film from 1994 that was ahead of its time. It is another sweet masterpiece from the master himself, Wes Craven. It is Wes Craven's New Nightmare. Now, I remember when New Nightmare dropped, that was, it was something else. Just the idea that Freddy was coming over into the real world and you were going to have the actors playing themselves. It was just so neat, and it was a few years before he did Scream, just 2 years before he did Scream, but I feel like it gets kind of cast to the side because it sort of lives in that shadow of past Freddy and, new Ghostface and Scream, being so successful. So it kind of gets swept to the side a bit, but it was a really neat idea and a very unique film, but a fun slasher movie as well, and I really enjoy it, and that is why it's my number 21. Okay, we've reached the top 20, and my number 20 pick is from 1988. It is Child's Play. Yes, the original Child's Play with Chucky. That is when we were introduced to him. That movie is great. I always thought it was an excellent movie, and Chucky is a great slasher, although he's another one of those ones that was almost on the fence a bit for me because, he's a doll. It's almost like a possessed doll sort of thing too, right? But ultimately, slasher franchise, he's just going after you, and that's what he does. So I was like, okay, he's definitely worthy of the top 20 for me. I really love the original Child's Play, as well as the sequel, more than one, but that is why it is number 20 on my list. Okay, on to number 19. Now we got to go back in time a little bit for this one. This is an oldie. It is from 1974. It is the original Black Christmas. I know, a lot of you would probably put this much higher on their list. I do love it. I think it's a brilliant movie, and it's done very, very well. And I do think it, of course, it inspired movies like Halloween and stuff. So it deserves all the credit in the world. And I love that it's a Canadian movie as well. Kind of like My Bloody Valentine that almost made the top 25. But in this case, I put Black Christmas as number 19. I think it's really well done. It's fantastic. It deserves to be there. And, you know, I enjoy watching it a lot. I put these other ones ahead of it again because they're just my favorite slashers to watch, you know what I mean? All right, so on to number 18. This is another one that I sort of was on the fence with for a bit, but ultimately I decided to put this franchise in, and it is Jeepers Creepers from 2001. So that is number 18 on my list. Big fan of the Creeper. I thought they did a great job with that movie. Interesting new killer. I remember being really, really impressed with this movie up until the part where it was obvious he was some kind of flying demon. And it went down a couple notches for me in terms of, because we went way off into, you know, the fantasy realm a little bit. But, I mean, that being said, really entertaining movie, really good acting. The characters were great in it. And again, you know, the villain, the killer, I mean, the Creeper, he was creepy for sure. But I really enjoy that movie. It's one that I hold up there fairly high, as you can see, and I do enjoy watching it. So that is why it is my number 18 pick. Okay, so on to number 17. This is an interesting pick from 2003. I really love this movie. So well done, especially for a remake of a classic horror film. And yes, you probably guessed it because I already said 2003. It is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So I remember back in 2003 when this movie came out, we saw it opening weekend, and I remember being really impressed right from the get-go. And I was expecting it to probably not be that great because it was a remake. But I think it's fantastic. I think it holds up really, really well. And it's easily why it's my number 17 pick. I mean, I hold it up just about as high as the original, which brings us to the number 16 pick. And yes, you guessed it, my number 16 pick is the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre from 1974. And of course, the reason it's ahead of it is because it is the original. It is a super creepy, disturbing film. Definitely deserves to be up there. Texas Chainsaw isn't my favorite franchise, obviously, but the original film is so awesome, and it was so groundbreaking, and it's very iconic. It just deserves it. But I thought the remake they did in 2003 was pretty damn good, which is why it's only one spot back. But that is why I have the original in the number 16 spot. Okay, and we're on to the number 15 pick. So this one is another classic from the 80s, this one being 1981. It is Friday the 13th Part 2. Now, how do you not love this movie? It is a really good movie overall. I thought it's very well acted. I love Amy Steele in this movie. She's fantastic. You know, Steve Dash as Jason did a great job in this movie. And again, it's a classic slasher that just has everything you'd ever want in a slasher movie, you know. And it's one of those ones I can watch. It just makes you feel good, you know. It just reminds you of the 80s, and I just really enjoy the movie. It's a complete experience, that movie, you know what I mean, as most of these are. But Part 2 is definitely one of my favorites, and it is why it is number 15 on my list. Okay, and now we're moving on to number 14. Now this one is a little bit outside of the box, but it came from pretty much my favorite year in the 80s for horror, and that is 1986. And this one is April Fool's Day. Yes, April Fool's Day has made my top 14 because I just love this movie. I watched it so much as a kid, and it just had that Friday the 13th feel, with a little bit of clue going on in it as you were trying to figure out who is doing all this killing. It's always different from the very first time you watch it. I mean, the first time you watch it, of course, when you find out everything, it's going to be a different experience than when you watch it again and again. But it's still a great movie to watch again and again, and I just love the concept of the whodunit, you know, and stuff like that. And I pretty much always watch it every April Fool's Day because it is so enjoyable. So that is why it is my number 14 on my top 25. Okay, so moving on to the number 13 pick. Okay, this one is a fantastic movie from 1988 that has a hell of a beautiful opening. And it's a classic. I watch it every year for sure. One of my favorites, it is Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. Now, many of you know I do love this movie. Of course, the only major flaw I thought it had was the god-awful mask they used. And there were worse masks, you know, like Halloween 5, for example. There were definitely worse, but that mask was not the greatest looking. But boy, was I happy to have Michael Myers back. That was exciting just 10 years later, and the story was really interesting. Too bad it kind of went the direction it went in, but Halloween 4 is certainly one of my favorites and gets watched very frequently. And that is why it is my number 13 on my top 25. Okay, on to number 12. Now this one is another Wes Craven movie. And it's from 1997. Yes, it's Scream 2. I put Scream 2 in the number 12 spot because I love Scream 2. I think it is very well done, and it was really interesting the way they played with sequels, and you know they talked about them so much in Randy's stuff, and the lines in there with the film club. It was just fun, you know, it was really fun. I hated, of course, the fact that we lost Randy in that one. And some of the stuff was silly, I know, in that movie, the whole theatrical stuff and the beginning of it, you know, I mean, the opening was cool, but I wasn't crazy with Jada Pinkett's death scene. I was never too big on that, but overall I thought that movie was awesome and a hell of a slasher movie and plenty entertaining. And it's another one of those ones like, you know, New Nightmare, where Wes was just kind of clever with the way he did things, you know. I just love the way it's done, you know, and that's why Scream 2 is my number 12. So my number 11 pick is Friday the 13th Part 3. In 3D. Part 3 I've mentioned before. I know some people are kind of, they're not big on it. I love Part 3. I thought Jason in his hockey mask, that first look at him that Richard Brooker had, you know, the weird shoulders that were all big and high, and how his face looked unmasked. Actually, even both versions were pretty cool, but the one that was really used was creepy as hell, you know. I just thought that movie was a lot of fun. I love the characters, the counselors that are in it. Chris is a great final girl. Yeah, overall, it's so much fun. It's such a great slasher movie. It was one that I struggled with because I thought that probably should be in the top 10, but it landed in my number 11 spot.
Well, there you have it, you guys. Top 25 to top 11. Tune in for the next video for Matt's top 10 and see who made the cut. I think I'm pretty confident on who's number 1.